Guys, I want to start by saying my prayers go out for those in California. They are having it hard right now. And I know this is kind of tough to say, but take a good look at California and what they're going through. That's guaranteed to be near Arizona, Texas, of course, the Gulf states, and the eastern seaboard. That's coming up. Guaranteed to do that same thing. We're talking about lots of rain. In fact, rain is going to be somewhat vicious. And I guess you could say for the last 2 years, I've been searching, right? And I'm going to be controversial tonight. I want you guys to know that. I'm going to be controversial because, there's really no time to take soft steps around what we would do well to get away from, right? And being in scriptures in depth, the way I've been in the last few months, there are several areas 100% convey that the Lord has what's happening right now is the Lord's doing. Take note. I want you guys to be careful of this weapon. I'm going to say this carefully, not for the sake of security or anybody listening, but for the sake of you guys. Because some of you are quick to take a position, well, that you likely should analyze first. For example, HAARP. Right? HAARP. I've noticed something. And I have to bring this out so that we can get a bit of sobriety in our group. All right. HAARP normally is a topic that people talk about when weather hits certain states or in certain places. But I've noticed California is going through a lot of floods, right? Not one word of HAARP. Why? And I'm mentioning this so that we can all be careful of what we attribute these phenomena to. Because how many of you are so certain God is not doing it? I say he is because he wrote that in Scripture. In fact, contrary to what a lot of people believe, it is God who preserved the beast system to come at the end days, to bring about the end of days. Do you guys know that? That is a direct quote, right? A direct quote. So being in soberness is very important because you don't want to be one of those that will attribute what God is doing to mankind. That does nothing more than glorify flesh. That's all it does. And that shouldn't be. So I need to remind you of that so that we don't make that mistake, so that we can have some checks and balances amongst ourselves, at least to encourage each other to stay in that preordained path of the kingdom God has established and not drift left or right into our own imaginations. How many of you have worked on the HAARP system? Anybody? No? Nobody worked on the HAARP system. Well, then not one person. Here's my point. When you don't absolutely know something for sure, we're not talking about guessing. We're talking about absolutely knowing. If you don't know it for sure, it's very good to leave those topics be. You may listen to others who are bold enough to say what they think it is over and over again, but it's best to leave those topics alone, right? Because what it does is that it diminishes your position with the Most High. If I were to take a position of something false because I believed it was true, whether I believe it, whether I am knowledgeable of it or not, that's absolute arrogancy on my behalf. It takes me away from that realm of truth, something we can't live without. And, I just do damage to myself. And if I continually do it, then what motive would be behind it? What good will it do? In the Bible it says, do all things with charity. How can one argue with charity. That is a worldly practice to argue a point. That is a worldly practice. That's a political practice. And at some point, we've got to distance ourselves from what they do in the world, right? And what the Lord has raised us to walk by. Because there are two different spectrums. I do not believe any of us can win against the enemy using the weapons of the enemy. I don't believe any of us are going to be victorious if we continue to amplify these things of the flesh. But we do it so easily because, for the most part, it's habit. It's what everybody else starts to say, and we say it too. We jump into the crowd. Dare to be different. Dare to be the only one that doesn't say a word. Be that person that won't jump in with the crowd and point at a person. Right? Dare to be the different one. The one that says, I will not target another human being. We're just, as human beings, we're arrogant. And we're paying for that arrogancy. Some people look at the weather phenomenon and they say, well, it's just one of those cycles. No, it isn't. We have a steady flow from the Pacific coming across the USA and other regions. We've not had these patterns before. We have heat blooms coming from both the North and the South Pole. Temperatures that would just blow your mind. Troubling temperatures. We pulled out 2 sub-bases. They are shut down. Nobody can go back into them because the ice was causing them to be stable. Can't use them. Not anymore. Because when the permafrost melted, so did the avenue for the submarines to get to certain stations. You can't do it anymore. We're going through phenomena we've not gone through before. The world says we have to do something about global warming. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, some of you will jump on the global warming bandwagon. Do you know why? Out of despotism. Because right now people feel, well, that's happening in California. It's not going to happen to me. And when it happens to them, just like it's happening in California, then what? They were warned in California. They were warned. There were some petitions that went to Congress for that very reason. Did they listen? No, they didn't. They didn't have enough evidence to move on. Look what's happening. Oh, did I mention the same weather patterns? The exact same weather patterns are showing up on Venus, are showing up on Mars. The same aerial patterns. Why? Because we have a tug at one specific side of the planet, causing each and every one of them to have these weather phenomena. Well, so much for HAARP. And for those who say, well, prove it. Well, I can't prove that because I can't take you to Mars. I can't take you to Venus. And no matter how much evidence is dug up, people are going to believe what they want to believe. The problem is death will be incurred. People are going to start dying by droves. And believe it or not, those will be the blessed ones. Because the rest will have to suffer the consequences of a global meltdown, so to speak. All of what you see, all of how you live, all of what you love on the earth is soon to be gone. Soon to be kaput. All of it is.